Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the story of them in a mailbox. Say coloring right here. As you see right here, is I went ahead and did like what you call a project where I created like what you call an envelope. It's like to be able to for use for it's like for like a letter if you were to be mailing a letter in the mail. Of course, that really that one piece of paper it is if it's measured by 8 by 11 it is length and width, and more likely that you would not be able to say keep anything safe in there really if it were folded down real good. Like more likely you would need tape, but the way I went ahead and did this was right here was I went and put to put about 5 or 6 different lines right here, and along right here is a flower. And you probably think about is if you were to look at it at about this direction, if that will be like what you call diagonal or vertical, say direction that knowing about. You have the flower right here, and then of course the places where you can put the return address and along with the sending address. But then if you turn it sideways right here and then go ahead and add just a little bit of detail, it's like for the flower it is just a little bit of detail that knowing about. It's like that. It's like when the creative stuff that more likely you can do. It's like if you want to do a flower. And then I remember whenever I was in the 5th and 6th grade, it was anything anything that you would buy. It's like the class if a classmate were to buy what you call were to maybe bring a walkie-talkie three-way radio to school. It is more likely, or maybe we call a glow-in-the-dark pair of shoes, anything like that. That more likely that they would show it to you, and then it would make them feel cool. It is, but on the other hand too, that I would always think about is that with me that I used to a lot of times I used to always maybe not always, but anyway, but if we all get the idea right. But other than that knowing about the things that I can do so far as doing artistic colors, it is say doing a different designs. You say using a variety of colors and all, and the way I think about it is like and knowing about how it's done. It's like by you, it's that knowing about that if you were to work the controls, if you were to position the marker correctly, then you can do what you call is kind of do it, say different patterns of designs for whatever that you want to do. And of course, whenever I was in art class, of course, that a lot of times the teachers would want you to do the artwork their way. It is that their way of doing it more likely would be is like that they ask you to use chalk, or ask you to use the stencil paint or just something like that. But knowing about it's like thing showing everybody, it's like this is what I can do. But on the other hand too, the knowing about is like that whenever I was in school, of course in the 6th grade, it is that knowing about that they would probably that the teacher had announced one time that doing about it's like what you call projects that would inquire toothpicks. It is, I think it was the 7th grade that we did something like that. The 7th grade is where we built bridges out of toothpicks. It is, and a lot of the ways that you're probably thinking about that toothpicks, really? How do they stand up? I'm like, really, the only thing that I really use this right here for really is to pick the food particles out of my teeth and between my gums or whatever you call it. But on the other hand too, that knowing about what you got with here with the toothpicks, it is that maybe you can maybe align them up right here. It's like in that spot right there. Align them in that spot, and you maybe give yourself an idea. Really, anything that you can try not to cut yourself, especially try not to hurt yourself, but to try anything to avoid hurt yourself. But on the other hand too, that knowing about if you want to draw a line right here and knowing about it's like this is where the measurement goes. But anyway, anything that I can maybe create, that I could probably think about if I was a young kid, back in the 5th or in 6th grade, maybe the 4th grade it is, maybe the 7th grade it is knowing about really if I can do what you call a project to do knowing about this is what I came up with. This is how it works. then more likely that I would probably think about that. Yeah, I'm sure that maybe not make a whole lot of friends, but on the other hand too, that knowing about that. Yeah, well, like what did you learn today? Like so far as knowing about the address, is knowing about what you call is for the story in the mailbox, is knowing about the type of, it's like the details about the address, about where it goes, on all that stuff. More likely they say that you write that on this line right here. On the other hand too, that knowing about is that if you go ahead and use the toothpicks right here, is like the outline, and then of course turn that verticalize, and then from there, if I want to what you call, it's right, you write my say my initials right here. And then of course it's like if I see here, want to write see my last name and like what you call a smiley face. But the reason why I'm like story in the mailbox is knowing about really I learned how to address an envelope, if I remember. Yeah, in the 4th grade it was that they ask you, it's like where does the address go? Okay, that's good. But then nowadays that they have it to where that you do email and stuff. You do email, and on the other hand too, that knowing about that is like the postal stamps. The postal stamps, I'm sure expensive it is, but on the other hand too, that knowing about it's like with the postal stamp, you just thinking about, it's like, yeah, that in what state is this package being sent to? If it's North Carolina or South Dakota or Minneapolis or any place like that, then more likely knowing about it's like to pick your choice. And more likely with a lot of the things that you can do online, it is knowing about it's like for wherever state that you want it to go to, is knowing about that's the destination right here. But other than that, is knowing about it's like what you call that particular story inside of a mailbox. You got right here is a writing, say a kind of example right here of a writing desk that's been used about maybe 300 times. But so you go ahead and add a little bit of color green right here. And that was like in the first, so far that is like in the how to see grows. It grows by knowing about exactly about, it's like with my middle initials. With my middle initials is knowing it's like so far it's like what we call this story in a mailbox. But other than that, it's talking about this like for a story in the mailbox. It's talking about this like for the same is what the envelope. The envelope, it's like if you want to put a any type of love letter or anything like that, make sure it's all taped in secure. It is. No one is like so far as being creative as so far as what you call it is like the story in a mailbox.